We just came up the Imperial Staircase. We're standing in the Imperial Corridor. This is the longest hallway in the Melk Abbey complex. You look to your left and your right down the long Imperial Corridor. It's about 200 meters downstairs in the courtyard that this abbey is a Benedictine monastery. Here you can see Saint Benedict. Saint Benedict lived in the 6th century. In the year 529, he founded his monastery in what is now Italy. Saint Benedict also wrote a book of rules which govern the lives of his monks. This here is a copy of this book of rules. This is a handwritten copy of the rules of Saint Benedict. Saint Benedict wrote his book of rules in the 6th century. The monks copied it by hand over the centuries. This one is from the 14th century. It's 700 years old. After the Bible, the Rule of Saint Benedict is the second most often copied book. And the book of rules begins with the word ascolta in Latin. On the wall, you can see it in German. Hör. In English, the word would be listen. This is the way the book of rules begins. Listen. If you were to simplify this thick book into just one sentence, you could say the meaning of the book of rules is ora et labora et lege, or pray and work and read. This is what the Benedictine monks spend most of their time doing, pray, working, and reading. It was very important to Saint Benedict that his monks could read and write. This wasn't very common in the 6th century that people could read and write. In the cases around the edges of the room, you see symbols for events from Saint Benedict's life. For example, the ladder, after the ladder, the stone. Saint Benedict went up the mountain, Monte Cassino, and at the top of the mountain, he laid the first stone of his monastery. He founded his monastery there in the year 529. We can move to the next one. Him from a barren elderberry tree. The tree didn't have any fruit. St. Column, you don't have to worry, though, we're nicer to tourists today than they were 1,000 years ago. We haven't hung anyone in a while. They hung St. Column from a barren tree. The idea, the legend is that after his death, the tree began to bear fruit again. This was a miracle, and that's the reason why he's a saint. His body was brought to Melk shortly after his death. He's buried here in the Abbey Church. At the end of your tour, you'll see where St. Columban is buried, and he's the patron saint of this abbey, so he's responsible for this abbey. It's an interesting story. It says that St. Columban is buried here in the Abbey Church. At the end of your tour, you'll come into the Abbey Church. There are two sarcophaguses toward the front of the church, left and right of the altar. On the left-hand side is where St. Columban is buried. The sarcophagus on the right, however, is empty. They wanted the church to be symmetrical when they built the church here. So we have two sarcophaguses, one on the left, one on the right. Unfortunately, they only had one saint, so we have an empty sarcophagus on the right. So here in this room, the floor goes up and down. This is a symbol for the ups and downs in the history of the Abbey. There have been very good times here, but also very difficult times. One of the best times in the history of this Abbey was in the 15th century, the Melk Reform, the time of the Melk Reform. The Melk Reform was a monastic reform. It started here in Melk and it spread from here to other monasteries. Other monasteries sent representatives here to learn about this reform and bring it back to their own monasteries. So this was a very prosperous time for this abbey. There are two pictures here in this room which depict the Melk Reform in the 15th century. On the left-hand side, you can see the monastery. Can you come a little closer, maybe? Yes, thank you. Here you can see the monastery before the Melk Reform. The abbot is sitting at the top. The abbot has a musical instrument. He also is holding a board game and a falcon. He's doing very worldly things. The monk on the side is holding a bag of money. He's greedy. The monk on the bottom is asleep. He's lazy. And all of them, of course, if they don't mend their ways, the devil will come and get them. So something obviously had to be done about the situation in the Benedictine monasteries in the 15th century. It can't go on like this. And what was done started right here in Melk, in this monastery, which is why it's called the Melk Reform. On the right side, you see the monastery after the Melk Reform. Everyone is behaving themselves. They're all being good. We're now going to leave the Middle Ages and walk into a very new, a very different era. And here in the doorway of the century, in the Baroque era, people wanted to create a heaven on earth. They wanted everything to glitter and glow. They wanted everything to be as beautiful as possible. This is the time period during which the Abbey complex, the way you see it today, was built here in Melk. I told you there was a castle already here in the 11th century. The first monks moved into the castle. They used the castle as a monastery. This is still a Baroque period. The ideal here is still of a heaven on earth, as you can see in this room. This is the abbot, Beator Dietmeier. He was abbot from 1700 to 1739, and he had the entire abbey complex here in Melk built. This was his life work. They wanted to save time. They wanted to save money. You can see the vesper coats from this time period. They're very different from the two in the last room. They're very simple. They're made of leather. They're cheaper to produce, of course. At the time, they also thought these would be easier to maintain. However, 300 years later, you can see that these are in actually much worse condition than the ones in the last room from the Baroque period. So actually using high-quality materials. The youngest monks who live here today are in their 30s. The oldest are over 70. Next, you'll see the students during the students of the Abbey School here. Here it says 800. Today there are already 900 students who attend the Abbey School. Both boys and girls. They're 10 to 18 years old. There have been girls here in the Abbey School for 40 years now, since 1960. This winged altarpiece is from the year 1502. It tells the story of the Passion of Christ. 14 locks, but only one key. All 14 locks turn with the same key. It goes like this. One more time. The idea behind this is that you can't break this chest open. You might be able to break one lock. You certainly can't break 14. You really need the key in order to open the tent. So here we can see a model of the Abbey, who now